Thank you so much for joining today, guys. We've got about an hour or so together. Just so you know, my intention here is I want to give you as much information as possible. We're covering quite a lot, and I hope that there's at least a handful of things that you can take away and implement into your business right away, and that will bring you value straight away. I'll just get straight into the presentation. There probably will be people joining as we go. If you have questions as we go, feel free to chuck them in the chat or unmute yourself and say hi and ask the question. Really happy to take questions as we go. Obviously not a huge group of people, so I want to keep this nice and interactive. This shouldn't feel like a boring presentation that I'm giving you. I'd much rather it was like a conversation. What we're talking about today is how to stop doing marketing and start growing. And the sub headline to this is why the majority of marketing is ineffective, inefficient, or both, and what to do instead. And there's quite a few memes throughout the presentation. I like memes, so I use them. Sorry about that. This is what we're covering today. So firstly, I'll give you a quick introduction to myself and kind of my track record. I don't know if everyone on the call knows exactly who I am. We'll talk about why marketing doesn't work. So why the majority of marketing activity in the B2B space is ineffective, inefficient, or both, and what I mean by doing marketing and not growing. And then thirdly, we'll talk about what to do instead. So what's the alternative to that, and what is required to cut through the noise, focus on growth activities that really move the needle and really bring us revenue and profit quickly. And then fourth, want to talk about how to actually implement this into your business and grow quickly. And then there'll probably be plenty of time at the end for questions and answers. So my guess is that the presentation part of this will take maybe 20, 25 minutes. So that will leave us plenty of time for questions if you have them. And like I said, please do shout out as we go. I want to start by telling you a story which will basically illustrate who this presentation is for and who I had in mind when I was writing this. And this is a conversation I had with a business owner a few weeks ago. Let's call him Jeremy, even though that wasn't his name. He runs a successful business. They've been around for 10 plus years, really good track record, really good product and service. And they've been profitable year on year, got to a point where they were maybe turning over 3 million a year, 5 million a year, team of 20 to 25, 30 people, really, really happy. And historically, most of their business had come from referrals and inbound from their network. So they haven't had to do much selling in the past. Now, Jeremy had intentions to grow. And one of the reasons behind that is he wanted to exit the business at some point in the next few years. So he had an idea to exit. He knew that they needed a growth strategy in order to do that. And they'd kind of tapped out where they could get to with their personal network and their kind of inbound network. He'd also noticed as well, just with the changes since COVID, the fact that there's less in-person stuff going on. The referrals seem to have dried up a little bit. So he knows he needs to grow, but he doesn't know where to start. So he thinks, I need to start doing some marketing, right? That's what people do when they want to grow. And so he goes out, hires a marketing manager on like a retainer basis, so like an outsourced marketing manager and an agency to help him grow. And over the next 12 months, they spend about £60,000 or maybe a little bit more actually. And they do things like they redesign the website. They test out some LinkedIn automation and they do some outreach on LinkedIn. They write blogs, which go on their website, and they do like a brand kind of facelift. So they like change the logo up, change the color scheme a little bit. And, let's say a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Oh yeah, CRM. So obviously you need to get a CRM as well. They buy HubSpot, that costs them another 10 to 15 grand a year or whatever it is. Now, the problem is it doesn't really generate any results. So they get a few bits of new business here and there, but it doesn't even pay for itself. And actually, at the end of the day, the results are not generated. And this is exactly who this presentation is for. And that's exactly who I had in mind when I wrote this. And it's frustrated business people or growth marketers who are tired of doing marketing and want to start really growing. The audience I have in mind is established B2B service businesses, just because that's kind of where most of my experience is, with a track record, usually boutique firms, so less than 50 people, sometimes with a small or sometimes no marketing function. Historically, most of the business may have come from referrals and from personal network, and you've not had to do much selling in the past. You've probably tried a bunch of marketing strategies, web redesign, PPC, posting content on LinkedIn, and none of them really had that impact you desired. You might have worked with a few agencies, you might have done some lead generation and it didn't work out. You may have been convinced that HubSpot is going to solve all your problems. I don't hate HubSpot, by the way. I just love to rail on it because people love it so much. It's like the sacred cow within marketing. Like you can't talk bad about HubSpot. And you know there has to be a better way. You're also aware of the need for business efficiency in stressful conditions like we have at the moment. And you're looking for a simple, efficient, and profitable way to grow your company. And you need a simple roadmap to growth, not a complicated web of smoke and mirrors. That's kind of who this is for. And this is a bit about my story and why I believe I'm qualified to speak about this. So I've been in B2B sales and marketing nearly 10 years. I've worked in-house in and running marketing and sales teams. I've run my own businesses, so I know what it feels like to spend my own money on marketing and know that it needs to generate me returns quickly. I've also worked with more than 50 B2B companies across my agency and one-to-one consulting clients. So I've seen many different growth strategies in practice, and this has really helped me separate the signal from the noise. So there's a lot of noise in marketing, and it's enabled me to design my own unique protocol. This is a bit about my track record. So I worked for a company called PGC a few years ago. I was director of business development. So it's like a growth lead role, running a small sales and marketing function. We had back-to-back record-breaking years whilst I was in that role. So really proud as a team, we were able to achieve that. These are our stats for 2020. So 35% increase in total revenue and 20% increase in customer acquisition. And then the following year was also another record-breaking year on top of the 2020 stats, significant uplift in revenue, and then continued to grow in terms of new customers as well. And we crossed $100 million in turnover, which had been a goal of the team for a long time. So this is a business that had been around for 20 years. I joined it like 19, 20 years in business, and then we were able to sort of take things to the next level. This is more of my current track record. So I then went on to found a business called Tarango, which is an SEO agency. We hit 50K MRR within just 4 months of our public launch, whilst maintaining 80% gross profit margins. We went from 0 to 8 full-time team members within 12 months. And we sold product market fit with a unique offer in a very competitive space. So the marketing agency space is super competitive. There's hundreds and hundreds, if not millions, of marketing agencies. And we're able to cut through the noise and scale up pretty quickly and very profitably with a unique approach, which is what we're talking about today, and then a unique message as well. And then I founded a company called B2B, which is the vehicle that I use to scale up B2B service companies as a growth partner, as a consultant. And we've done over £100,000 in sales in just the first 48 days since we launched the big business. So that's a snapshot from our financial statement from Tarango 4 months after we launched. So we launched in Jan 2022, it's just 4 months later. And then this is a snapshot from our CRM from B2B from a few days ago. So that's me. 3 things I love outside of work, which you may know about me already. I absolutely love coffee. This is a video of me doing a pour over. I don't know if that's boring or not. Love dogs, and I love watches as well. So I love collecting watches. If you want the way to my heart, just talk to me about one of these 3 things. Cool. Right. Let's talk a bit about marketing and why it often doesn't work. Now, I said I wanted to make this an interactive presentation. I'm going to ask you a question now. Is there anyone in the room of, the 8 of us, is there anyone in the room who's brave enough to give me a definition of marketing? You can unmute yourself and talk, or you can put it in the chat. So how would you define marketing?
So I would say it's presenting your offer or service or whatever to a body of public through some type of medium, something like this.
Yeah, I like that, Dom. I think that's a good way of putting it. So presenting your offer in front of the public using one channel or one medium. Yeah, it makes sense. I'll give you my definition. So this is how I think about marketing. And it's not that this is the right way, it's just how I think about it. I like to think of it like getting attention for your message and your offer. So very similar to what Dom said. It's the methods that we're using to get attention to our offer. And it's really powerful when the message that we have is resonating very well with our audience. However, most businesses have not gone through the steps that are required to find real resonance. So to find a message that really, really resonates. Another way to talk about this is to talk about product market fit with their marketplace. So the marketing or the attention just ends up amplifying an ineffective message, right? So if marketing is just getting attention and we have an ineffective or message that isn't optimal, then we're just going to amplify something that isn't optimal and not clear. And this is the reason why the majority of marketing doesn't work, is that there's not a clear message and not a clear offer. And therefore, even the best marketers in the world are not going to be able to help you because they're going to be able to bring you loads of attention, but it may not help you grow. So this is the cycle that many businesses find themselves in, right? They hop from channel to channel and they hop from kind of the next marketing gimmick to the next marketing gimmick. It's like automation one day, and then it's using ChatGPT the next day, and then it's, paying for ads on LinkedIn the next day. And they don't see significant and consistent growth. And so it's also very inefficient to market like this. And business efficiency is so essential in stressful conditions like we have in 2023. So businesses that do not adopt efficient growth strategies are pretty unlikely to survive, in my opinion. So that's kind of how I think about it. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Now, that obviously begs the question, what do we do instead of that? How do we find the message that resonates? And how do we do that before we start scaling up? Now, here's what to do instead. So we need to find resonance before we scale up, okay? So before we try and get as much attention as possible to our thing, our offer, our message, we need to find resonance first. And we need a methodology or a technology that will allow us to find resonance. Again, you could call this product market or service market fit, remove all the noise, and then scale up efficiently. It also needs to be simple and not have too many moving parts. Again, most of the businesses on this call today are not going to be huge startups or enterprise businesses. We're, boutique, smaller SME type businesses. We don't have a huge marketing budget, and we don't have capacity to deal with loads and loads of moving parts. So it needs to be a simple approach. It also must be dynamic, so we can update it as we learn more about our marketplace and our customers. And it must be highly leveraged, meaning leverage is just how much output you get from your input. So something that's highly leveraged, you put 1 unit of input and you get hundreds of units of output. So that's what we want. And because then we can get the most out of our time and energy that we're putting into it. And this is my answer to this, and I'm going to do a little drum roll, is sales letters, dynamic sales letters, and artificial intelligence. Ta-da. This sounds very fancy. It's not. I've just intentionally tried to make it sound really cool and fancy. It's actually a very simple process, which we'll walk through in a moment. I just wanted to put a cool name to it so that it sounded more impressive. And then what I'm going to do now is break down the step by step. So you need dynamic sales letters and artificial intelligence. Now, what do I mean by that? And what do I mean by a sales letter? So a sales letter is a marketing asset that's designed to take a cold prospect and turn them into a warm lead or a buyer. And this is not a new thing, by the way, guys. Like, this has been around for hundreds of years. Put simply, it's one really great piece of marketing content. And it's my belief that all you need to grow is one really good piece of marketing content. It's a little bit like an elevator pitch, but it's much more detailed. It's more like a business case or a marketing argument. So it's why you exist as a company, who your thing is for, how you uniquely can help them, unique insights that you share with the market, and authoritative expert insights that you can share with your marketplace. A great sales letter ties together the whole business because it's almost like a business case. So it ties together your marketing, your sales, and your product or service, what you're actually delivering. If you combine a sales letter with 2023 internet technology, so this is what I mean by AI, so advertising platforms, video, social platforms, all of this stuff has AI built into it. It basically becomes unstoppable. And this is kind of the dynamic aspect. So you've got your traditional marketing sales letter type approach, and then you're combining that with all of the technology that we have in 2023. And this is where it becomes super powerful. It's the answer to everything. Your marketing will become 10 times more efficient when you have a great sales letter. Sales becomes a piece of cake because the sales letter has done most of the selling for you. And even just service delivery can be informed by writing your sales letter, right? So, you're writing your sales letter and you're getting insights from your marketplace, and that might inform the service or the product that you actually end up delivering at the end of the day. It's even been rumored that sales letters can solve world hunger and cure cancer, which I can't confirm or deny. And this is an example of a sales letter before internet technology. So this is a guy called David Ogilvy, very, very famous in the marketing world. He was an advertiser. So this is what a sales letter looked like whenever this was, 40s, 50s, 60s. I probably should have found out before sharing this. but this is what it used to be. So it's like a magazine ad or a billboard ad or something like that. Nowadays, it could be a video, it could be a webinar, it could be a Google Doc, and all of these things can be adapted and updated as they go. And then you combine that with things like the platforms that we have at our disposal, or the video technology that we have at our disposal, and it becomes very powerful and highly, highly leveraged. So hopefully this is making sense, and hopefully this is kind of getting you excited about what is possible with this stuff. So this is how you actually do it. Like, how do you use sales letters and AI to find resonance and scale up? Would you create a VSL before you have market fit? That's actually a really good question, Hakon. I'll come back to that before. And for the people that don't know the marketing lingo, VSL means video sales letter. So it's just a video version of a sales letter. The short answer is yes, because you use the VSL to find market fit, and then you iterate it. Clear as crystal. Good. Yeah, you do create a VSL because you use that to find the product market fit, or the sales letter. It doesn't have to be a video version. And so that's the powerful part, is it's dynamic. So you can find out very quickly if it's resonating or not. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So here's like the minimum viable approach for you to take to find resonance and scale. So if you're an established business, you're going to have a client base, and I hope you're going to have some really great case studies, businesses that you've really significantly improved or helped. So you're going to look at that and isolate the best product line or vertical to go after. So you'll look at your case studies and you think to yourself, which are our best case studies? Which are the most impressive transformations? Which are the most profitable from our perspective? So the most profit per unit of time or energy that we had to put into the project. Where do we have a competitive advantage, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to review all of this stuff and pick the best case study and therefore the best product or vertical that you'll go after. You'll then write a sales letter designed around your best case study or case studies. It must be niche specific. So it must be really targeted towards one customer with one problem, and you're solving that with one solution to that problem, right? So it doesn't work if you try and target lots of different people. It has to be narrowly focused as much as possible towards one group of people. You're then going to drive traffic to that sales letter using whichever method that you want. So paid advertising is a good way to drive traffic to something very efficient, but a little bit more expensive than, let's say, outbound or inbound via your content. So you're going to drive traffic to this thing, and then you're going to make a judgment on whether you've achieved resonance or not. The way that we would determine that is like how many people, after they see this, are following through with the call to action that we have. So our call to action might be booking a call with us, or fill out a form, or sign up for a free trial, depending on what you're selling. So how many people as a percentage are following through with that? If we're doing sales calls for our product, then often people will tell you if something resonates. So they'll say, oh, that thing that you said really resonates with me. That's a good way to know if you've got resonance. And obviously, if you're doing sales after having, within a few weeks or months of launching a sales letter, then it's probably finding resonance and it's probably working really well. And if it's not, you're going to update it, try a different audience. So you're either going to update the content, or you're going to update the audience, and you'll do more testing. And this is the important part. You're going to keep testing until you find resonance, and then you scale up. So once you found resonance, you can then optimize your sales process to drive up efficiency. So you now have a way of turning cold prospects into warm leads. And then now what you need to look at is, how do you turn those warm leads into customers? That's effectively your sales process. You're going to optimize that, drive up efficiency. So you want your closing rates obviously to be as high as possible, and you want your sales cycle to be as short as possible. Then you're going to scale up your marketing. So this is where you get attention, right? Because we have a message that's working. We have an efficient process of turning those warm leads into customers. Now we can scale up. And this is kind of my main point of this whole presentation, is a lot of people start here and they haven't gone through the process of finding resonance, which is why their marketing is not effective. So you're going to drive as much traffic as possible to your sales letter, since it's performing really well. You're going to continue to update it as you gain more insights, and it should perform better and better and better over time. Again, in the olden days, a sales letter would be a static thing that can't change. Now, you you can start running traffic to a sales letter. You can take 50 to 100 sales calls over the course of 6 months, for example. And then all of those insights that you got from those sales calls, you can use to then update your sales letter. And so it just gets more and more powerful over time. And then finally, you're going to hang on for dear life and try and keep up with all the cash that you're generating, because it's going to get more and more efficient over time and compound over time as well. Hi, David. How do you approach testing? Good question from Jamie here. How do you approach testing? Do you just change one variable at a time, or do you completely change the messaging if it's not seeing the expected result? Do you know what? That's a really, really good question. I would advise, and good to hear from you, by the way, Jamie. It's been a while. I would advise changing one variable at a time, because otherwise it's difficult to know which variable has caused the outcome. So you want to get the feedback as quickly as possible and then change one variable at a time and be as scientific as possible. This is another great question, Hakon. I'm going to come back to these ones because we'll probably touch on this in a sec, and then there'll be plenty of time for questions at the end. But please keep them coming. I'm loving this. So that's kind of the step-by-step process. This is what it looks like in protocol form. So I'm going to open this up now and walk you through it step by step. So what I've tried to do here is write it into a framework and into a Figma design and give you an idea of what sort of timelines you should be aiming for. I just want to check, just shout if you can't see this Figma file. It's like a flow map with a bunch of shapes on it. If you can't see it, let me know, but you should be seeing it now. This is kind of that same 6-step process, but in a framework version. So we're going to start with what we've talked about, which is coming up with a hypothesis. And again, this comes back to one of the questions, which is around, you have to be scientific about your approach. So you start with a hypothesis. This is what we think our product market fit hypothesis is, and we need to test it. We're going to use that information to build out the initial sales letter. And then we're going to drive traffic to that sales letter to see if we found resonance. Now, there's really 3 ways to do this, to be honest. Paid advertising is the most efficient. If you have the money to spend on paid advertising, that's by far the most efficient. If you don't, then I would advise doing outbound messaging on email or LinkedIn, or even cold calling people. And then the third way is inbound via content. So that's either going to be like a personal brand on a platform like LinkedIn or somewhere else, because we want to test the hypothesis. Like, we've got an idea of who we think our thing is for and the kind of messaging that we need to use. And we've got an idea, but we don't know until we test it, right? So we're going to test it and we're going to ask ourselves, have we found resonance? Now, this is the powerful part of the process. If we haven't, we're going to iterate and go again. So we're going to update the hypothesis, use that to feed back into our marketing content, and then drive more traffic to it to determine if it's working or not. And this is the powerful aspect, because a lot of people, they'll do a web redesign, for example. And so they're coming up with a hypothesis, I think it should say this on our website. It might take them 6 months to actually redesign their website. And then by the time they start getting traffic to it, it might be 6 to 12 months before they've even got traffic to it. And we don't even know if it's working, right? So the faster we can move through this process, the better, right? So we want to, take a few days to spin up a sales letter, test it over the course of the next few days rather than months or weeks, and then keep testing until we find the right thing. So according to our timeline, we want, within the first 3 months, we want to have found market resonance, okay? And that's kind of what we should be aiming for. So once we've found resonance, the next step is to optimize our sales process. So what we're aiming for here, on a high level, is we want to shorten the sales cycle as much as possible and increase the closing percentages as much as possible. So we want as many people as possible to buy our thing, and we want the sales cycle to be as short as possible. Now, there are lots of ways, I can't really get into all the detail, but there are lots of ways to make the sales process more efficient. There's removing stages, there's making really clear action steps from each step of the journey to the next. And then in terms of the closing percentage, it's really about having a great framework or a script that you work off. And again, constantly improving it over time. So if you take 50 sales calls, you should know what of the things that you're saying is resonating really well, okay? So you're going to continue to feed those insights back into your marketing and back into your lead gen or advertising process. We then need to figure out, so we now have a message that's working and we have an optimized sales process. If we were to really turn the taps on here, and start driving loads of traffic through or loads of throughput through our process, would we be able to scale profitably? So the key metrics here are customer acquisition cost, sometimes called CAC, and lifetime value, and the ratio between the two. So we want the highest ratio of LTV to CAC as possible. So it needs to be at least 10 times, in my opinion. So if it costs us, let's say, £10 to acquire a new customer, then we want to make at least £100 from that customer in terms of lifetime value in order to maintain hyper profitability at scale. So that's kind of what we're aiming for. If we don't have that ratio in the right place, then we've really got two options. Number one, we can reduce our customer acquisition cost. So how do we find ways to get clients in a more cost-effective fashion? Or the second option is to increase our price, because it's costing us this much to generate customers. We need to increase our price. And in order to do that, you're going to obviously have to update the product so that it's worth that new price point that you're charging. So once you can scale up profitably, the answer to that is yes. Now is the time to scale marketing. So now is the time to get as much attention as possible to our thing. If we're running ads, you're going to scale up your ads. It's not quite this simple, but you kind of just spend more money on your ads to get more attention. If you are doing outbound, you're going to hire more appointment setters to send out more messages for you. You can use things like content and SEO to drive down the customer acquisition cost over time. So this is a really good way of getting free attention over time. You know, you might have referral partners or channel partners. There's no one size fits all here. And I usually recommend to businesses to have two channels that are working really well for them and just double down on those and go all in on those channels. Again, you don't need 5 or 6 marketing channels for an SME business. You need 2 that are performing really, really well and 2 that are really dialed in. Again, the reason that a lot of people fail is that they start here. So they start by just hiring a PPC agency or doing some LinkedIn automation when they haven't gone through the process and earned the right to scale up by finding resonance. The final step is obviously to build out the growth function that you need. So what do you need in your sales team? What do you need in your marketing team? Spoiler alert, you need a lot less than what you think. Again, if you have a really efficient process, you know, with great content, this is going to do a lot of your selling and a lot of your marketing for you. And so you do need, you know, people to keep the wheels turning. You probably need a few inbound salespeople. You probably need some marketing people, but you don't need a team of 100 salespeople. So that's kind of my thoughts. So that's the framework version right here. Let me just open up some of these questions. New question I can answer at the end. Will this framework? Yes, I'll share all this after the session. No problem at all. What is the best traffic for paid ads for B2B? That's a really good question. We'll come back to that in a moment, but love it. Love it. Okay. I'm going to jump back into this presentation and there's just a few more slides and then we'll finish up with some questions. Actually, there's just one more slide. So this is a case study of us actually implementing this in practice in our business and the results that were generated. So we've used this exact protocol to generate over £100,000 in sales and more than £200,000 in our pipeline within 48 days. So that's, you know, over 300K that's now in our pipeline using this exact protocol that I'm talking about. And we've done it within less than 2 months. So 48 days of the public launch of our company. We don't have a fancy website. If you've been to our website, it's literally just one page with one video, which is our video sales letter. We don't have a big marketing budget. We don't have a large marketing or sales team. It's mostly just me right now and one assistant, believe it or not. We don't have an expensive CRM, so it costs us maybe, I don't know, I think it's like £50 a month, maybe a little bit more. We don't have a podcast. Everyone seems to have a podcast. We don't have one of those. And there's nothing wrong with any of this stuff. My main point here is it's just not required for growth. All we have is a really great video sales letter and a few methods of driving traffic to it. This is from our CRM. So you can see these are the deals that have been won. So deposit paid, they haven't started yet, just over 50K. These are the people that have started already, just over 50K. And then these are the people who we've had calls with, and they may drop into the closed column in the next few months. Snapshot from our CRM. And then this is the video sales letter. So that's it. That's what we use for our ads. That's where we drive people from our content. That's pretty much where we drive everyone. the next steps from here for you guys, and I've got plenty of time for questions at the end, is have a go at implementing this strategy into your own business. I really, really hope, I genuinely hope that you've seen some stuff today that you can implement right away and you'll see results from it. If you need additional support with implementation, you're more than welcome to schedule a free consultation with me here. And then please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I'm basically building this company in public, so I'm sharing a lot about how we're growing and the real numbers and like the story behind the numbers. I want to just give away as much information as possible. So please feel free to follow me. And that's pretty much it. So thank you so much for listening. Please either unmute yourself if you have a question or drop it in the chat. And we'll get through a few of these in just a moment. So yeah, I'll share, just send me a message on LinkedIn if you want the framework and I'll send it out to you. What is the best traffic for paid ads for B2B? Is it LinkedIn ads or have you used YouTube ads? So this is a really good question, Hakon. And this is sort of my main point of the presentation, which is like the traffic source almost doesn't really matter because the main thing is the message. So if you get the right message, it doesn't really matter how you're putting it in front of people. You know, you could do LinkedIn ads, you could do YouTube ads. You could just go around to people's house and give them a leaflet. And if it's the right message, and they're going to resonate with it. And that's sort of my main point is I think in the marketing world, we get so hung up on what methods are we using? Like what channels are we using? And actually the main thing is like, is the message right? Have we got product market fit? And have we got something that really resonates? To your question, I love LinkedIn ads because B2B companies tend to hang out on LinkedIn, but YouTube ads will work. Instagram ads will work. Instagram, Facebook ads will work. I dare say TikTok ads will probably work, even though it's B2B. So you can use whichever method that you want. How do you determine what to spend on paid ads? That's a really good question, Tisha. So my recommendation for people typically is to start with £100 a day for testing. So that's roughly £3,000 per month. So you have to have at least that much to start testing things. The way to think about it is the first month or so is all about gathering data and building your retargeting audience. Generally speaking, you don't usually have conversions or sales on your cold audience right away, or you may not have, unless your sales letter is really, really, really good. So you should see the first month as we're building data and we're building our retargeting audience. Within advertising, I'm sure you guys will know, a lot of the conversions come from retargeting. So people that have seen your ads and you're retargeting them with follow-up ads. So I would start with about £100 a day. And then once it's profitable, that's when you start to spend more, because once you have profitable ads and a profitable process of using ads to get customers, it really becomes like the more money you can spend, the more money you make. So if you can keep that profitability, it's a really, really good situation to be in. Can you share an example of some good VSL? So, I mean, the one that we're using right now, you can see it at b2.be, and it's on our homepage. It's working really well for us. So have a look at that and let me know what you think. What is your cost to acquire a customer from paid ads in general? Good question. Let me, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll see if I can just show you something without showing you anything confidential in my ads tracker here. So this is our ads tracker. So you can see, this is on LinkedIn. I spent £3,500 in February, which generated three leads or three sales calls and one client. And then in March, we spent just over 5K so far, which has generated 6 leads and 3 demos, and 3 clients have been signed this month. So far we've spent 8.5 grand and we've generated over 61,000. So that's like a 7.2x return. So every pound is generating £7.20 on the back end. That's a really good cost, situation. So our customer acquisition cost is costing us like £2,000, just over £2,000. These numbers aren't exactly right, just a caveat, because you can see, so for example, for March, we've had 6 bookings, but we haven't had time to have all the demos yet because they're in the next few weeks. We're not at the end of the month yet. So these numbers will adapt over time. It's costing us just shy of £1,000 to book a call, basically. And then, yeah, like I said, we've signed 4 clients so far, which has generated just over 60K in revenue. So at the moment, the cost per client is probably a little bit less than that, but it's around £2,000. Hopefully that answers your question. Can LinkedIn ads still, this is from Jamie, still be effective with a relatively small audience of, say, 15,000 people? Yeah, they can be effective on a really small audience. It's just, how are you using it, and where is that audience coming from? So what we do as an example is we run ads to a big cold audience, and spoiler alert, the ad is just the video sales letter. That's literally all it is. So our cold audience is probably, let's say, 250,000 people. So it's large. Like I said, we're not necessarily expecting to make money on the cold audience, but it's the power is in the retargeting. So if we're running a video ad, we're going to retarget people who have watched, let's say, 25% or more of the video. So over time, that retargeting audience is going to build, and we'll share the same ad with them so they see it again. And then we might share some other bits and pieces like case studies and stuff like that. Doesn't need to be complicated. And then over time, you can add a retargeting layer on top of the retargeting layer, if that makes sense. So you've got your cold audience, and then the retargeting layer is people who have watched your cold ad. You can retarget them. And then there's a further retargeting ad layer that you can use, which we usually call hot. So it's like cold, warm, hot. And that's people who have watched your or interacted with your content in your warm layer. And so they've already seen 2 layers of your ad, and there's much more intent there. So that's how I would talk about it. So at the moment, our cold audience is probably like, let's say 250,000 people, just very broad, just like targeting sort of business owners of certain business size. The warm is maybe like 6,000 people now. So we've spent £8,000 and we've got a warm audience of like 6,000 people. One way to look at that is like 6,000 leads of potential customers that we can potentially sell to. And then our hot audience, high intent audience, because we've not been running it very long, is probably like 400 people. So that's how I would think about it. Up front, you want to do most of your spend on the cold layer, and then it will, over time, it goes more to the retargeting audiences. For B2B, can you explain how, this is another great question for Hakon, how you got the initial traffic for the testing phase? Was it inbound through your personal brand on LinkedIn, or did you do any paid ads? I think I've answered that now. So we spent £8,000 on paid ads in the last 2 months, and it's generated over 60K in returns. So the initial testing I did following what I said earlier, which is I spent about £100 a day. And as soon as it started working, I started spending a lot more than that. At the moment, we're probably spending £300 a day, something like that. Awesome, guys. Has anyone got any more questions or anything that I can help with at all? I've really enjoyed this. Thank you for showing up.
Well, maybe not a question, maybe just a remark for me. Maybe others are in some type of a similar problem. So from my perspective, I started to do a little bit of advertising and whatnot, and then went over various networks like Reddit, Twitter, or LinkedIn, whatever. And then you see that one ad costs like, I don't know, €0.50 or €3 or whatever. And then I spent like €100, nothing happened. And I said to myself, oh, this shit doesn't work. It's just like meaningless. So from my perspective, it's good to see that the ad spend the budget needs to be a little bit bigger, obviously, plus everything else that you mentioned, like the creating the message, making the resonance part, and then actually moving to like from cold to warm audience, and then signing them up, especially when we're talking about business to business. This is not like we're selling, I don't know, toothpicks for €1 a pack. This is like services that are like 5, 10, 20, 50,000 euros a pop. So definitely it would be great if I could spend €100 and book a client who spends 50,000 euros. So, but obviously it doesn't work like that. So yeah, for me, it's like a good thing to see that I need to sort of up the game and then like revisit the full cycle of it all. Yeah.
Totally. And not everything works for paid advertising. If your thing is not like a high ticket service. So the reason that I've talked a lot about paid advertising is most of my customers are like selling some sort of high ticket, either consulting or, service that's pretty high margins. So you can afford to spend money to book in a call. Yeah, if whatever you're selling is not that high ticket, it's better to use other vehicles to get that attention.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you can see that, for instance, I have a CEO in my title on LinkedIn, so I'm targeted by I don't know, car brands and whatnot, like Porsche and Mercedes, and I'm thinking, well, that's cool if you guys think that I have that kind of money to spend because we're a startup. So like we're always how Elon Musk said, we're cash poor, so so like, but for them obviously it works, because if they can sell a Porsche or whatever for 50 or 100,000 K of whatever money, then probably for us who are in service sector it works as well, because the margins are, I guess, probably higher than in car sales.
Absolutely. Any more questions, guys? Thanks for that, Dom. It's good to have you here. Awesome. Really glad you guys enjoyed the session. Like I said, if you need more info, please do follow me on LinkedIn if you're not already. And obviously, if you need any help with implementing this stuff, then just book in a call with me. Really appreciate your time and attention. Have a great Friday, great weekend, and see you guys soon. Take care.